Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to be introducing your next mini project, which is called the Intertextuality and Influence mini project for the unit on a good and happy child. So normally I will link it in each day's directions, but since I am working on this before your class tomorrow, I haven't linked that yet. So I'm just going to help you to find it like where you normally would on a normal basis. So you can go ahead and click into the modules. And if you scroll down, you'll see our last unit on little fires, and then you'll also see the module that we've started building for a good and happy child. And we are looking at the second one, so GHC mini project. When this opens up, what you're going to see is the project handout document. So this is what I would normally give you if I was giving you a paper copy in class. So this is just informational. You're not going to actually do anything with this document. You will actually be creating a Google Slides presentation and uploading the URL to this assignment in Canvas to submit. So this is just informational. So let's go through it. So this is called the Intertextuality and Influence Project. And it deals with all kinds of subjects, just like a good and happy child does. So we're looking at science, religion, the paranormal, and literary horror. When I was designing this project, I was actually reading the introduction to this H.P. Lovecraft like anthology or like collection. And in the introduction, there's this note about horror literature and how so many pieces that we see in the horror genre, both on the page and on the screen nowadays, come from these ideas that have, made horror what it is. So anyway, my point is I wanted to include an excerpt from that little introduction because that's what created this project. So it says, the public for whom Poe wrote, though grossly unappreciative of his art, was by no means unaccustomed to the horrors with which he dealt. America, besides inheriting the usual dark folklore of Europe, had an additional fund of weird associations to draw upon, so that spectral legends had already been recognized as fruitful subject matter for literature. The best horror tales of today, profiting by the long evolution of the type, possess a naturalness, convincingness, artistic smoothness, and skillful intensity of appeal. And as I was reading this in that anthology, God, I just thought about Justin Evans and how this speaks to who he is as an author to a T. So anyway, then as I was thinking about that, this project came to be. So your task for this project, you are going to be working with a small group, and you actually just learned who your new group is. So you guys are going to be delving into two subjects that fall under two different categories. So this project is really has a dual purpose. First, you're going to look at an author that falls on kind of the evolution of horror literature, the spectrum. Like if we look at horror literature from its beginnings to now, that covers a very large span of time, and there are some heavy hitters in terms of the authors that land on that spectrum. So you're going to be looking into some of those authors. Each group will be looking into one. And the purpose of looking into the authors is really just to get a sense of what makes horror what it is today. Where are horror authors drawing from? What are they? What are their influences? Then you're going to deal with a concept that will further our understanding of the characters and events in a good and happy child. So the thing you need to be aware of, and I cannot stress this enough, is that your author and your assigned topic may not have any connection to each other. Every once in a while, you will see some similarities or comparisons or connections that can be drawn. And if that's the case, please, by all means, tell us about them. But just know that the purpose of this project is not for you to connect the dots between your author and your concept. You're just kind of looking into two different things and telling us about them. So if you scroll down, you will see the breakdown of which group you're in, who your author is, and what your topic is. These authors are pretty self-explanatory. If you Google them, you'll get lots of nice information. That tends to be the easier part of this project. And then the science, religion, and paranormal topics, those I kept pretty broad with the exception of a couple. So if you need clarification on what I'm looking for or like where in the book you should be looking for examples of how Justin Evans is exploring this topic, please ask me because when I designed this topic, I was digging through the book and like I have very specific references that I can point you to if you need some help. Also be aware that your presentation dates are pretty close to when you will be encountering the material for your project. So for example, if I'm pod 8, I'm going right away in the presentations because we're going in reverse order this time. Group 8, I suppose. Your topic will come up pretty early in the book. But if you're group 1 and you're looking at like poltergeists, or you're group 2 and you're looking at the TAT, those topics don't come up until much later in the book. So let me know if you want me to point you in the right direction as far as like where to find your topic in A Good and Happy Child. You can also see the unpacking dates. That's just my fancy way of saying presentation date. And I will go over the calendar in a few minutes. So author, for your author explanation, you're going to be just researching your author. And I'm giving you some questions to start with, but don't feel like you have to go through in your presentation and like tick these off and like answer every one of them. It's just a place for you to start and to get your gears turning. So, questions to consider. Who is the author? What time period did he or she live in? What was going on in the world at this time that probably influenced what the person was writing about? What kind of books were popular during this time period? What are some of this author's major works? What's his or her style of writing? What kinds of subjects did the author explore? In what ways did this author contribute to the literary community of the time? Like, for example, there are some horror authors that really pushed the envelope when it came to looking at mental health and the supernatural or the paranormal. So, like, some authors really explored hallucinations and how like maybe it is a hallucination and not actually a ghost or vice versa. So some authors are really known for what they wrote about in that way. The last thing just says, can you draw any connections between this author or author's work and our study of A Good and Happy Child? And again, keep in mind that it is not your job to connect the author you're researching to A Good and Happy Child, but if you do find connections, tell us about them. Okay, so that's the author stuff. And again, this is basically just informative. It's just kind of fun to learn about some of these authors, these heavy hitters in the genre. The next part of your project is to dig into your assigned concept. And again, those concepts are scientific, religious, or paranormal. And you can begin with the guiding questions that I'm giving you, and then please branch out. Don't be married to these. They're just some ideas. Does your topic have more to do with science, religion, or the paranormal / supernatural, or maybe more than one? You may want to define your concept for the audience. For example, if you have like dissociative, fruitcakes. If you have dissociative identity disorder, some of you may have taken like psychology or AP Psych and you know what DID is, but some of your classmates may not have taken those classes. So please just give your audience an understanding of what your topic is. You do need to consult at least 3 sources of any credible media. So that's where, if you have no idea what your topic is, this is a good place to consult some outside sources and get a good sense of what your topic is about. Your credible media can be anything that informs your understanding. So it could be a documentary, it could be a YouTube video, it could be an online article, it could be a book, it could be an interview. Like, sky's the limit as long as it's informing your understanding. Does the concept fit into the literary horror genre in any way? Like, for example, like Poltergeist or the Prayer to St. Michael and Exorcism, those are natural fits into the horror genre, but some of the others may not be. So just maybe tell us that. And then how does the concept relate to our study of A Good and Happy Child, and how does your research help to clarify elements of the novel? So this is the meat of your project, this one question. This is where I want you drawing connections between what you're researching and what you've read in the novel. This is where I want you spending the most time in your researching and in your presentation. Presentation. So you probably are going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes in your presentation. That's typically what I see. I don't care if you go over, that's totally fine. Those presentations that are under 5 minutes tend to be underdeveloped, under-researched, under-prepared. So that's more where I have some issues. So just know that going in. You're going to just kind of walk us through your work. So first, you're going to introduce us to your project by telling us which author and concept you explored. Please give us an introduction. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than when a group has an opening slide projected and then they just go ahead and skip right over it and don't say anything about it. So please give us an introduction. Then you're going to discuss your author, and then just kind of walk us through what you learned about that person, what you found out in your research, and if there are any connections to what we read about in the book, now's the time to tell us about them. Next, you'll talk about your concept, and you want to explain the connections that you identified between your concept and the book. And again, this is where I want you spending the most time. This is where the analysis is going to happen. And once you start digging into your project and your topics, I think you'll have plenty to talk about. Lastly, please conclude your presentation by reiterating your main ideas and leaving a lasting impression on the audience. Again, a huge pet peeve of mine is when kids say, "That's it," or "Here are our sources." I don't know. You could ask any teacher, they'd probably tell you the same thing. It's just, you want to round out your presentation and like finish it instead of just like walking away awkwardly. Don't do that. Or like turning off your Zoom camera. So don't do that. Just give us a conclusion. To produce your visual aid, I'd like you to use Google Slides. This tends just to be like the easiest path of least resistance kind of thing for kids to use. And it just allows me to do everything that I want me to do and for you to do. So one person can start your slides and share them with everybody in the group and with me. Please give me the right to edit your slides so I don't have to hunt you down afterwards when I'm trying to grade and get you your score back. You are going to be scripting your presentation in the notes section, just like you did with the Little Fires Everywhere slides. Again, I cannot tell you how helpful this is to me because I inevitably will miss something when you're presenting, and this is just like my fail-safe so that I'm not like docking you points where you for sure said something and I just didn't hear it. On your slides, do not use bullet points. Again, I know teachers have differing opinions on this, but for me, I really can't stand it when the slide is covered with text unless it's a quote. So please, like, don't give your audience more to read while they're trying to listen to what you're saying. Keep your text minimal. You do have to use quotes. So the only text that should be on your slides is the quotes. And then if you have to use a title of some sort for your slide, cool. But like, that's really it. The rest of your slide should be well-chosen graphics and images that represent what you're saying. It should supplement your verbal points, not distract from them. Okay, so you do need to include at least one direct quote from A Good and Happy Child and at least one direct quote from one of your outside sources. So that's 2 quotes total. Please don't dump them both on one slide. Try to incorporate them in meaningful ways into your slides and not just on one. You do need in-text citations after your quotes on your slides, so those need to be in MLA. You also need a works cited slide at the end of your slideshow. So if you don't know how to do MLA, I did link the Purdue OWL in here for you. So that should be a nice resource, and I can always help you if you need to. So your works cited slide should contain 4 sources total. So 1 for the book, since you're quoting it directly, and then 3 entries for your credible outside sources. You do not need to cite images, but I would suggest using Unsplash. And I can't remember if I showed you guys Unsplash, so I'm just going to show you really, really fast. Unsplash is just what it sounds like, unsplash.com. This site is a site with professional photographers' work, and they are free to use without running into copyright law errors and issues. So if you just search anything, you'll see that these are all like HD, gorgeous images, and you can search anything. Like, this is just nature, but you could search anything that relates to the project and find some good stuff for your slides. Everybody needs to contribute to the project, both in the work leading up to it and in the presentation itself. I've been having some issues with group work lately. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just, it doesn't fly with me, and you need to collaborate. You need to pull your weight. You need to stay on top of it so that you're not like making your group members freak out the night before and like, oh my goodness, is Billy going to do his work or is he not? And should I cover it? Like, none of that. It's not okay. I don't support that. You need to carry your weight. It is a part of the rubric too. So I check revision history. It's a big deal to me. So just do your part. The rubric is in the Canvas assignment. If you scroll down, you can see it here. Please familiarize yourself with this rubric so you know exactly what I'm going to be looking for. Okie dokie. Let's go to the calendar really quick. I just wanted to give you a timeline. So right now, as I'm recording this, it is the night of the 14th. So tomorrow, when you're watching this, it'll be the 15th. I'm hoping that you'll have some time today in class to start game planning. If not today, you will have time in class tomorrow. And then you may have a few minutes here and there, like between now and your workday. But if not, your workday is on Monday, October 26th. You will have the entire class to work. And then we start presentations on the 27th. We're going to do 2 presentations a day in reverse order. So 8 and 7 are on the 27th. Groups 6 and 5 are on the 28th. Groups 4 and 3 are on the 29th. We have October book talks on the 30th. I'm not sure why there's 2 of those in there. Sorry. So October book talks are on the 30th. And then we will finish up our presentations on Monday, November 2nd. So that is the timeline. So plenty of time to work on your project, collaborate, and get this done. I really like this project. It tends to be fascinating to look into these authors and like connect these really interesting concepts to the book. And I'm hoping that you find them valuable too, not only for your understanding of the book, but also for like seminar. They give you some really interesting thoughts to bring to the table for that, and also for your unit test. So that is the mini project. If you have questions, just hold off until I get back on Monday. But go ahead and get started game planning with your group.